I live in a pretty quiet, cozy neighborhood in California. All things considered, it's a pretty quiet, cozy suburb kind of environment. Granted, I do live in an apartment, and there are a few other apartments on the street, but they're relatively small and don't have they're not like giant complexes, like these giant stacked up apartment complexes. They're just, some some smaller units here and there, but it's other than that, it's a pretty well off area. Um, we've never really had a big homelessness issue on our street. Sometimes people do walk through our neighborhood just to get from one side to the other. But recently, in the past year or so, past couple of years, especially recently, we've had two people regularly sleeping on our street. Not on our street, but in a van or RV. There's a gentleman here who's not here, but on my street, or on our street, who lives in a really old RV. I think he's like an older disabled gentleman, probably in his 70s, and he uses our laundry room and our dumpster, which nobody really complains that he throws his stuff out in our dumpster. And some people just kind of let him in so he can do his laundry, because you know, he's like bound to like a little scooter to do everything. So people let him in just to do the laundry room. But there's also a young black lady who lives with her dog in a van. And this is new, but it's becoming increasingly more common across the United States. We're seeing people resort to van life. And I mean, even I've had, moments of dread or despair where I'm like, what am I going to do? Where am I going to go? But granted, my family did reassure me that as long as I'm willing to put in the effort and not be a problem, I would never be homeless. So fortunately, I'm not going to have to worry about living in a van unless I personally opt into that. Either because A, for whatever reason, I don't want to relocate, or B, because I don't know, want to live that nomad lifestyle. But and I'm not ragging on people who live in like vans or RVs, because for some people that like calls to them. That's like something that almost they were meant to do, because they go to like Red Rock and they go to all these places and they film it and they live in a little camper or little RV. Some people just can't stay still, and that's not a problem. That's not a problem. Like, some people just they gotta be on the road. They gotta be traveling, living, having an adventure, or whatever. I don't rag on it, but I think it's really just a shame that we have really our neighborhood was just such a quiet neighborhood. Now we have two homeless people living in their vehicles, in an RV and a van, on our street. And I'm not saying we got to get rid of them. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying this is where we're at. Like, people are being evicted at like record numbers, and people are like, they're losing their cars, they're losing their house. And yeah, and I think it's crazy that we went from having like no homelessness issue on our street to now two people localized on our street. And they have to move, like, because there's street sweeping. So they have to be parked on a certain side of the street. In fact, a few years ago, we almost had parking permits required for every guest that we brought over or something. I think I would, like, me being an apartment renter, I would be allowed one parking pass for one guest, like one per house. Between like a 2-bedroom, I would only be allowed like one per like unit. So I don't even really know what to make of it. I don't know what to say, other than I see people are not able to afford rent, and I'm kind of like thinking like, I understand why people live in a van, because you at least own it. You have a little sink, you have like a little stove, you can watch, your little shows on your little TV in your little van. Everything's little. Even tiny houses. Like tiny houses advertise themselves as a tiny home. It's like a little tiny bungalow, like almost like smaller than a cabin. Like cabins are bigger than tiny houses. Like an old style cabin. Or maybe they're like kind of, I don't know. I haven't seen enough cabins to make that assessment. But it's just like that does seem appealing to me. Like I don't want to live in a tiny home or a van, but if I had like, a little AC unit in a tiny home that was like $80,000, $100,000, like yeah, that would resonate with me right about now. I mean, you know, like I've never been a first time homeowner, so I don't know if I, could even get in. Maybe there's like some grant or something where I can get a good deal on the interest or whatever. But yeah, it's just like crazy that now like a lot of millennials and Gen Zs are thinking, oh well, I can't own like a condo or a townhouse, like, but I can own a tiny home and work remotely or make YouTube videos, whatever. Um, that's what people are like resorting to now, like van life and drone footage. Like this is what everyone's doing to kind of keep up now. And I'm not against it, but I'm just like, wow, like this is what people aspire to now. People aspire to live in a very tiny house with an upstairs loft for a bed or in a van. And again, I'm not knocking it. I'm saying it, the tiny lifestyle appeals to me because all I've ever known is paying on this apartment. I've been in this apartment for like 10 years. I've spent almost like 100 grand just to live here for 10 years. And to think that there's nothing to show for it afterwards. I mean, yeah, I agreed to rent this place, but it just kind of bums me out that like for 10 years I've invested like close to $100,000 just to live here. And that's not enough to like show to a bank. Like a bank won't look at that and say, oh, well, you spent like basically 100 grand on a place to live for 10 years. That, they're not going to look at that and say like, oh, well, we'll give you a good loan or, you know what I mean? Not that I'd even want one with the prices of houses in California, but it's like, I don't know. I'm just kind of going off, but I think that we're probably going to see a lot more people be evicted and see a lot more people living in their cars and see a lot more people living in a van. And these vans, I mean, that's probably going to be a whole industry is like remodeling vans to be a little house, put a bed and a stove and a little sink. That's probably going to become its own whole industry, just like the tiny house industry. We're probably going to see a lot of like tiny van startups where you can basically just go pay for parking at the beach and just live at a beachfront property in a van. Just open up your slider and your windows and you got the air breeze coming in, you got the wind coming in, you got the ocean. I don't see why that wouldn't be appealing to a lot of people who have just been paying rent. Like, just how about own your van and go where you want? I guess the main downside is you can like be told to move, or there's also the issue of like running water. What if you need like some clean water, or you use the restroom, shower, mail? Like you got to get all these things in motion. It's it's not all free. You gotta actually work at all that stuff. But I forgot the point I was about to make. Trying to think, because I don't really edit these videos, but I was thinking, as far as the industry for that goes, I think that's kind of the next thing we're going to see. I don't know. This is not financial advice. I'm just saying, I think that that's going to be a big industry soon. Because, oh right, the downsides. I think also it's kind of a downside for women to live in their cars, which unfortunately I think a lot of women do live in their cars. Like maybe more statistically, maybe not. I don't know. I don't know the numbers. Don't quote me. But it's more dangerous for a woman to be in a car because it leaves her, open up to a slew of other things that men don't have to deal with. But yeah, I'm not encouraging people to live this lifestyle, but I understand because I'm even kind of, thinking to myself like 30 grand and you basically have a house and a bed and a car all in one. And you can't, I don't know. You can't do a lot of things, but there's also a lot of stuff you can do. And it's just, I see why people have resorted to that. But anyways, I don't want to repeat myself too many times here. So I'll just end the video here. Thanks for watching. And let me know if this is something that appeals to you or something you've been exploring. Because, I looked into it. I saw it was like 30 grand to buy one of these decent vans. And I think a lot of people, again, I want to clarify, I think a lot of people do this out of necessity, but I think there's also a big culture of people who do this because they love it. Like they're drawn to it. They love the freedom. They love owning a little something. They love driving all around the United States and making videos or taking on like, gig work somewhere else or something. They work remotely. I think that's a very interesting life to live, but I don't know if I could personally do it. Fortunately, I've never been put in a position where I have to, but I don't know if I could. But let me know if you have any experience with this personally, because I do feel for these people that do have to do it and have to live in a car and have to live by the beach or in a parking lot or at a library or a hospital. This isn't how people should have to live. But I guess that'll do it for this video. That's kind of how I close out these videos. If you've been watching any of these videos consistently, which thank you if you have, that's kind of how I close out these videos. That's all I got for now, because that is the truth. That's all I got. Take care.